Among all of the archetypes mentioned by Jung, the four cognitive functions described in his book Psychological Types are those that best categorize, at least for me, the human psychic experience in its entirety, or at least comes close to that. Through this single theory, we can integrate all of the other Jungian archetypes, and with that, develop a model for how we can better act in the world. Not as a manual on how to live life, but as a guidance on how to be the best model of our internal and hereditary responses to the external and cultural stimuli in the environment. It's about maintaining contact with our personal part while dealing in the best possible manner with another interpersonal part as well. Jung's four functions are the basic ways in which the human psychic works to process and to understand information from the world. Each of these functions is different ways of perceiving, interpreting, and processing reality. They can initially be separated into two groups. The first one are the judging functions, and then the perceiving functions. Starting with the judging functions, there is the thinking, which is related to logical analysis, organization of ideas, and objective reasoning. This function involves the ability to analyze information logically and objectively using rational and critical principles. Its counterpart is feeling, the function related to subjective evaluation, empathy, and moral decision-making based on the personal values and also the societal values as well. This function involves the ability to consider emotions, the values, the feelings of either oneself or of other people. For Jung, people then make their decisions based on one of these two functions. And on the other hand, there is also our way of perceiving the world or the perception functions, which can be first sensation, related to the direct sensory perception and the concrete experience of the physical world, which can be also associated with our five senses. And also the second, that is our intuition, the function related to the unconscious perceptions, the creative insights and information synthesis. This function involves the ability to perceive information using imagination and creativity, much like openness to experience. So Jung believed that each person possesses these four functions to different degrees, with one or two functions being more developed than the others. He argued that the balance and conscious development of these four functions is important for personal growth and a search for meaningful life. Therefore, there will be in each one of us a dominant function which guides our way of acting and perceiving the world, an auxiliary function which helps this dominant one, a child or tertiary function that is not well developed, and a shadow function, which would be our personality blind spot, so to speak. However, each of these functions creates an interpolation between perception and judgment. That is, if you had thinking as your dominant function, you will have either sensation or intuition as your auxiliary function. If you have intuition as your dominant function, your auxiliary function can only be then thinking or feeling, implying that we are always either perceiving or judging the world. And this attitude of ours of perceiving or judging the world can have both an internal or external aspect, which Jung calls extroverted to the external one or introversion to the internal one, which are proposed to be counterparts of each of the functions, increasing their numbers from 4 to 8 functions in the total. Starting by the thinking functions, there is the extroverted thinking. This is a function that focuses on the external world and the object rationality and logical information. This function seeks to analyze and to understand the world around them using rational and critical principles. People with this function can become great leaders who manage people, such as Steve Jobs, Julius Caesar, and Napoleon Bonaparte. While the introverted thinking is a function that focuses on the inner world and subjective, personal, and abstract ways of doing logical decisions. This function seeks to analyze and understand the inner world, the thoughts the person uses using personal and subjective principles. People with this function can become great thinkers and intellectuals, such as Albert Einstein, Immanuel Kant, and Charles Darwin. With the feeling functions, there is the extroverted feeling, which is a function that seeks to understand and evaluate the feelings and values of other people based upon social and cultural criteria. It is the ethical part of judgment associated with the general consensus about the individual and can become great popular leaders who always aim to the social good. Examples of dominant extroverted feeling will be someone like Martin Luther King Jr., for example. While the introverted feeling, on the other hand, it focuses on personal feelings and values and seeks to understand and evaluate one's inner world. This function seeks to understand and evaluate one's own feelings, own values, and based upon the subjective criteria. It is the moral part of the judgment associated with the individual over the general consensus and people with this function can become great artists who express their personal and internal emotions outside. For example, Kurt Cobain, which would be a great example of an introverted feeling person with dominant introverted feeling, therefore. With the sensation functions, there is the extroverted sensing that focuses on the sensory and concrete information from the outside world. This function seeks to observe and perceive information directly and objectively, using the senses and the sensorial experience. People with this function may value living in the present, in the moment experiences, valuing what feels good in the present rather than waiting for a possible future. While the introverted sensing focuses on the sensory and concrete information from the inner world. This function seeks to observe and perceive information directly and subjectively using the senses and sensory experience. People with this function may value their memories and the past experience more, always valuing the personal marks that these situations left on them. And then we have the intuitive functions, starting by the extroverted intuition. This is a function that focuses on the unconscious perceptions and the future possibilities in the external world. It is a function about seeing the possibilities, about testing what is possible, and is associated with imagination, creativity, and can often make a person seem random when expressed. It is like opening several different boxes when you never know what to expect. While the introverted intuition is a function that focuses on the unconscious perceptions and future possibilities of the inner world. This function seeks to perceive information unconsciously using intuition like a Russian doll, that instead of having many different boxes like in the extroverted intuition, the introverted intuition, it's like one imagination or one intuition that follows the next, open one after the other in a sequential way of perceiving. People with this function tend to want to find the truth behind all of things and all of reality. When dysfunctional, they can become really paranoid. A good example of a person with dominant introverted intuition would be Adolf Hitler, who just had to make these theories on how the Jews were on all German society, controlling them from behind. Now, Jung believed that these 8 psychological functions are equally important and that each individual has a unique and personal configuration regarding them. He argued that the balance and conscious development of these functions is very important for the integration of personality and the search for meaning in life. In the following video, we will try to make some comparisons between these functions with the already spoken Big Five model. Therefore, a comparison between this analytical psychology of Carl Jung's with the more scientific and current models of personality evaluation.